has been a ginormous year for the Infinite Outlaw channel, not just because when we started out we wanted to make more analysis videos, but also because we've branched out into so many differing paths as the year has went on. You see, this year started out with a vision. I wanted to make a video every single week on a video game or anime series or whatever it could be that I could write about. And while yes, the year may have started out with a lot more written content, I still was not exactly hitting those levels that I had wanted to. So I just hastily wrote on a badly cut out piece of paper. I did this all very quickly, mind you, out of a sheer fit of inspiration, a schedule for myself. This is something that I've tried in the past and I failed to deliver on it due to the sheer amount of emotional stress that I was feeling under that schedule. But every time I've had a more free environment with working or creating content, I've always fell through on it. I've gone months of making esoteric podcasts and then all of a sudden saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna quit YouTube now, that's apparently a thing. It didn't end up being a thing, as you can see. And so I think the not doing things rabbit hole just goes down farther and farther. And while this does take work at first, it takes work to get into the habit of doing things, I think this is far more important to my growth to struggle a little bit, but then get into the habit of doing things just by sheer willpower and effort, than it is to sit around without a schedule and just leave things to inspiration and to the wind and get barely anything done. Core issue with the entirety of my focus at the time was that I had wanted to make videos on just media. I didn't have a specific intent behind analyzing the media. I wasn't really focusing on a type of media that meant something to me. I was merely focusing on media itself. And that led to a lot of problems, because when you only want to be a media analyst, you have to train yourself to be a media analyst. And while that was part of my plan, I didn't really get ready for that. So you see, the thing was that I had believed to some extent that my content would just magically come if I just tried hard enough, but where my training lies is in the personal. That is the first endeavor for January 2018. I want to start out this year on a bang. I want to fix all of the problems that I've been having in one fell swoop as the year begins. You know, I want to shoot these things quick and easy, just so they're gone, and I don't have to worry about them. Or I've come a long way enough in that short amount of time to where I can feel confident enough to take on the rest of the things. Also, I'm rambling a lot right now because it's like 7:45 a.m. and I've been awake all night. I woke up, I think it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon today, but I'm real tired, man. I'm real tired, and I'm up making schedules and talking about the future and all this. Getting this review done by the 3rd may be problematic because people don't know what my sleep schedule is. If you look at all of my videos for long enough, eventually you will notice a trend that within each one of my scripts, I look at the game from some personal angle, or even in some cases, the entirety of the video being from a personal angle. This is because I realize that media itself is inherently subjective in how you consume it, and so I find the most interesting aspects to be the subjective ones. So the focus of my videos is not necessarily trying to always come to a complete value judgment of one thing, or to make a video that stands the test of time in the sense of conveying these basic things about the industry that everyone knows and everyone can learn. It's more so about communicating who I am, what I'm about, why these pieces of media were able to do something for me. And on a more broad level, what I was trying to express was how those pieces of media could even be consumed positively anyway. I had videos like my Minecraft video where the entire conceit of that video is just the idea of comfiness within a game setting. It's about trying to walk this, you know, path as a miner. And then from there, trying to just sit with your friends and talk. It was about the appeal of the game, not necessarily being the content of the game itself, but merely the fact that when you play the game, you are put in a perpetual state of comfiness, one where you aren't entirely focusing on all the elements of your environment. You're more so focusing on a bunch of little ones at once, and it provides this very zen feeling, and it also gives you something to do with your friends, so you get the social interaction as well. That perspective on Minecraft is a very personal one, but it's one that's not dived into much, because people often look only at what the game means objectively, despite the fact that Minecraft is an extremely personal game to many. This is the core, heart, and soul of my videos. It is to find the things that personally make us tick as people, and then to analyze them for what they are, from my own perspective, and the filter that I analyze all media through is just that. It's looking at how these specific elements in media, broadly speaking, are able to appeal to me, and then explaining the context behind that that led to that. The problem is that at the beginning of the year, I didn't want to do that. I only wanted to look at media. I wanted to look at media for what it was. I wanted to provide value judgments. You can't necessarily do that when your only training in writing is talking about these broad sweeping qualities that explain your entire perspective on media. No, you have to look at media for what it is. You have to look at media as its own entity. You can't just apply the exact same logic to every single game, or else you end up repeating yourself. You end up repeating these basic realities of how you feel about media rather than talking about the more specific elements of said media that apply to you. And there it is, the heated battle between specificity and broad concepts and specificity and specific games. That was my problem, was that all of my videos were tackling it from the personal edge and from the broad edge, when what I needed to train myself to do was to be able to take the personal specific edge and then apply it to a specific game. I was only ever really good at talking about the most broad elements of video games that I like. For example, density, distraction, comfiness. I've explained what all of these concepts are and mean to me in depth in multiple videos, but the intention behind those videos was to provide a broad perspective. When you review a video game, when you look specifically at what a video game does, you have to talk about story, you have to talk about what its mechanics do versus the mechanics in other games. You have to talk about what specifically makes that game. You can't just apply that exact same broad sweeping logic to every single game, or again, you're gonna repeat yourself. So, how do I do that? I teach myself how to do that. The problem is that each video coming out at this time wasn't really doing that, and thus, I ended up not learning, and by extent, making way less videos than I planned. That is the problem, isn't it? You begin making something with the intent of making it this big, grand idea. You talk all this game about it, but once you actually do it in practice, you notice there are a lot more flaws in your logic and in what you want to do than you at first thought. It's not as easy as you thought it was going to be. And the entire year of 2018 was me learning that these things that I want to do have a lot more complex elements that I need to sort through. Do you like these fast motion cuts here where I speak one point and then as soon as the point is done I jump over to another cut? You see, that's just an element of the experimentation my channel has gone into and has been going throughout the entirety of 2018. 2017 began as a learning year. I was going to learn how to do the very basics of YouTube. I was going to learn how to write with more effective wording. I was going to learn how to express basic ideas about how I felt, and I was going to learn how to be a better speaker. In 2018, I felt that I had enough of those things understood that I could begin experimenting and then learning more complex elements of the craft. And so, the entire year has been experimenting with different speaking styles, it's been experimenting with different topics, different video styles, throwing every single thing at the wall until eventually I know what I am and am not good at. And practice comes into that too. So, eventually you find these videos that stick and these videos that don't stick, and you figure out which ones you're good at making. Let's just say that this year began with an absolute bang, but like I said, it wasn't exactly the type that I was expecting. I had released a lot more video game videos. I had released vlogs on the main channel, which I had never really done before. I tried my hands at it with the seasonal anime vlogs in 2017, but other than that, they were basically devoid on the channel. So what I tried to do was this video called A Moment of Appreciation. I did one on context and anime reviews, and a few other ones that were very, very important points to my narrative as a speaker on the platform, and were very integral to understanding that perspective. But I didn't know how to write them, so what I did instead was I just got up on camera and started talking, edited out the silences, and then released them as they were. A Moment of Appreciation is to this day one of my favorite videos I've released, because the emotions of it are so raw that it just couldn't have been done in writing. Now that first half of the year was all fine and good. We started writing a bit better, we made some of our best videos writing-wise, and, you know, we had gotten speaking, normal vlogs on the main channel, which the majority of this channel is now. But the real big caveat here is the time between each video coming out, because you gotta understand, at this point I wasn't really confident in my videos entirely, so I couldn't just release an esoteric vlog like this on the main channel and feel totally fine about it. Instead, I spent, you know, crazy amounts of time combing over which ones would or wouldn't be uploaded, until eventually I just realized, you know, fuck it, I am good enough at talking to release these things. And that's when July comes in, because the first video that I released, I believe this was in late June, early July, was this video titled Why I'm Never Going to Be a Musician, which was just this very personal edge on, you know, why I didn't want to be a musician. And I thought the quality of it was dismal in some areas, you know. It felt like it was good at some parts and wasn't really good in other parts, but I knew that I had to release it, because if I don't, I'm not going to get better and I'm not going to form a more cohesive personality on this channel. So I had to give up my own expectations of what I thought the videos would be, and instead I had to release them, you know, to the avail of the audience's reaction, because the thing about audiences is that they don't really care. They'll watch almost anything that you make. You know, I'm going to be sitting here and then worrying about all these flaws in my own work, but as long as the audience is happy, I'm not going to get any complaints. The only one I have to, you know, kowtow to is me. Writing, and this is referring only to, of course, speaking and writing. These two different genres within YouTube, most people do not even give a fuck. So you can just release whatever and most people will watch it. The issue here with me for so long was just cultivating enough of an identity around that. My writing had a very distinctive voice. It was never honed very well. I wasn't ever very good at conveying the information perfectly, but there were distinct emotions and a distinct voice to it. I just needed to channel that and form an identity around it to then have fans who recognize that and flock to it. I couldn't always do that, however, because again, I lacked enough topics to write about consistently, and I didn't know how to market them consistently. Maybe I would strike gold with a relevant video once, but then the rest of the writing ideas I came up with did not meet anybody's expectations in terms of clickbait. And so, I was left, of course, with making vlogs. Now, to me, this is the point in which my channel's identity is completely solidified, because I released a few videos like my time at the mental hospital, like social consequences and nihilism, why I'm a hikikomori, all these different videos back to back to back to back that showed a very specific lifestyle that was different than most other internet denizens and gave a voice to the many internet denizens who did not have one, who were too scared to speak up, about the fact that they were living this way, and I was doing it better than anyone else. To this day, I am the greatest, you know, hikikomori YouTuber that there ever was, other than, obviously, Hiki-chan. Like, Hiki-chan is the only other one. She was iconic for her time. She produced videos that had a very distinct identity and personality behind them, and, you know, she was fucking adorable. Everybody loves Hiki-chan. The reason why people love my videos is just because I can talk for extremely long amounts of time, and I have a lot of enthusiasm and energy. And when you apply that to an outsider subject like hikikomori, you're going to turn a lot of heads because no one had done that before. And so I became kind of a semi-relevant / semi-important figure in the community just by way of releasing good videos about being a hikikomori. And so, you know, July passes, we get into August and all these other things, and all the way up until December, I'm releasing consistent videos about the nature of being a hikikomori. I start, you know, dipping my toes into some, like, weird edited shit, like the Sing Me to Sleep video, which is literally just a compilation of Oboe-chan posts. And, you know, from here I'm just releasing videos about normal things within my life. By that point, I have literally turned the life into a product. I've taken these elements and then just solidified them as part of the identity of the channel. And this is where the channel really starts to pick up. I don't think enough of my current audience was around for this, but I currently have a 60K video on my channel titled I'm Skeptical About LEGO Unikitty. This video is basically just clickbait 101. You begin with a very audacious beginning line, you have an extremely incendiary thumbnail with things like "kill me" on the, you know, written on text, and close up to the character's face, and, you know, a title that basically just makes you angry. You know, the important thing about that title wasn't that it said LEGO Unikitty was going to be good or bad, it just said I'm skeptical. So it leaves the viewer wondering, hey, what's this person thinking? What are they skeptical about? What is their opinion? They didn't necessarily know it was going to be overtly negative, so you didn't have those people who were so positive about the show that they wouldn't click because they weren't scared away. But you did reel them in, and then you reeled them in enough to get angry, and then hatred drives in shares, it drives in clicks. And so the marketing of that video was around implying enough hatred, but not being too overblown about the hatred, because if you're too overblown about it, then video's not going to get seen. I posted this on Reddit and all kinds of places, and then it got traction. And so I believe I even posted it on, like, Ko, which is retarded. You shouldn't shill on 4chan. But, you know, I was desperate at the time, and I did. I did that with a few of my other cartoon videos. I did it with, my My Night and Me review way back when I was learning how to edit and shit. But when I released this video, my entire audience was cartoon-based. Now, this was in 2017. This is a very different outlaw. And so my channel kind of centered around this clickbait cartoon content that was not good, not well written by any means, but it just had clickbait, and people were autistic, and then they clicked on it. And, you know, I can't blame them for that. That's just what they like seeing, but the fact is that, you know, I didn't respect anything that I was making. I was just making it because I knew it would get me more money, it would get me more views. And, eventually I leave this, I become so disgusted with my channel that I just make podcasts on there, and that's like a transitionary period where eventually I get back into the idea of making videos again. But I had alienated myself from my own passion just by way of making so many clickbait videos with this Unikitty garbage. And that was a community that I was finding a voice in, you know, like I said, 60K viewed video. If I kept down that path, and if I did enough relevant topics, eventually I would have been like a mini figure in the cartoon community. I just chose not to do it, but I knew exactly how to. What I'm saying here is that this hikikomori stuff is basically the second coming of the cartoon wave. It's just that I was actually passionate about the hikikomori videos, so I did them for longer. It was only until later this year that I realized that these videos were consuming my life and that they were making my mental state worse, and so I had to decide to stop. But I had cultivated far more of an identity in this community than I had anywhere else before, and so after I left it, it was just a huge, you know, confusing period. It still is, on what the fuck is my channel gonna be and which audience am I gonna reach out to. And that's exactly what I felt when the LEGO Unikitty stuff had ended, when I said, yeah, fuck this, and I made the Struggles of an Outlaw 1, which basically just called out all of the retarded bullshit I was doing at the time and scared away a lot of viewers as well. And so I've had these times in my channel before where the growth just spikes because I, you know, game the system with titles and things like that. But I never fully stay with it. If I fully stayed with the Hikikomori stuff, if I made enough, you know, relevant videos on what Hikis want, if I shared them out enough, if I had other people share them out enough, eventually I would have hit 1,000 subscribers. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But I didn't, because that's just not what I was passionate about anymore, and I needed to move on for my own health. So far, this year, it's been experimenting, it's been trying to get better at my craft, and then trying to find a niche that I would be consistently happy with. The reason why I chose Hikidom was because there was no one else doing it. There was no one else doing it as good as I was going to. There was no one else doing it from my perspective, and there was no one who wasn't, like, you know, 5 years old on YouTube doing it anymore. Like, Hiki-chan is dead, and there's Japanese YouTubers, but no one can tell what they're saying, so I was like the only guy. And I inspired a lot of other people to start, which I really like their videos. Like, there's, you know, some older people on here too. Technically he's not a Hiki, but Zabujard's there, but he's like, if you even count him, he's the only one, you know? He is literally the only one before I showed up, and I mean, props to Zabujard. He's like, again, I don't consider him a Hiki YouTuber, but he is like the third best YouTuber on this platform. He is, you know, better than my videos have ever been. Like, his videos are fucking amazing. So, like, you know, my content, what I've been trying to do here is just ride the wave, and then figure out which wave I want to stay on. So I have made a lot of good progress this year. I've basically doubled my audience from the beginning of the year, and from here, you know, I honestly have no idea where I'm going to go. I'm just going to continue with these video game videos and then see what progress I can make in those writing-wise, and then I don't know. I honestly have no idea what I'm going to be able to do on this channel. So it really has been a ride this year. I've learned so much about making videos, I've learned so much about speaking, I've learned so much about writing, and the reason why is because I just